All right, guys, what's up? What's up? It's Nate Spencer here with Hooman Rahimi and John Cash Hurst over here.
What's up?
Guys, thank you guys for coming on. And you guys are, well, I guess we can get into the first big announcement. You guys are now a team in Pro 2 this year. Is that correct?
That's right.
Yeah, unfortunately.
So I guess first question is why, how did it become a thing, and just go into the little origin story of where this is going.
Basically, last year, towards the end of the year, I think it was at Grid Life South. Maybe that's not even towards the end of the year. Just kind of midway through the year, I was talking to Hurst. Like, we always hang out like at the tracks. We always help each other, and we both ran Z or G platforms, which share a lot of parts. And I was just like, hey, next year, do you want to like try to team together and try to go out this and like share spares and things that we could share, because we did have a 350Z and a G37. And then eventually he's like, well, let me think about it and think what we could do. And eventually he's like, you need to build a new car. Like, you need to build a new car. And I'm like, that wasn't really on my agenda, but he basically convinced me, like, hey, let's build a new car. That way we can have identical everything. And the only thing kind of different is the drive shaft and body parts. And basically from there, like, we figured it out, and now we're going to be doing like a 2-car trailer, just basically having a spare of everything that matters, and we'll try to pick up stuff that isn't as important throughout the year, but we're set up. And then, like, our teams have always hung out together too, so I think it's actually kind of an easy transition.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, kind of like what he said, that I was kind of on the fence of it for a while actually. Just because, like, the huge thing of it to me was that Hooman had to have a different car. Like, I just wasn't for his 350. It was still basically a full-on street car that had power windows, full interior, weighed a ton. It just wasn't even like a Formula D car yet. And the fact that I have to say that to him is crazy, because my car is like streetable still, and has like a lot less, but like he still had everything in it. And the fact that his 350Z weighs the same or more than my full G37, which has like a foot longer wheelbase, is crazy.
That was like 33. Yeah, I don't know. I think it was lighter. Later.
No, later.
No. First year was 35.
on my end is clearly everyone knows that I've never had the budget. And so I've never had spare parts. I go to the track. If I have spare parts, it's very limited. Hooman's always got like a full trailer full of everything. And I told Hooman, I was like, look, let me build the car, and, I'll take the time and everything like that. And then you just help with like getting the trailer and stuff. Something that I've used an open trailer all of FD basically, besides my first few events, which Dynasty used a hauler, which made me look like I might have been a baller at that time, but I sure wasn't a baller, So
right.
So it's actually played out really well, I think, and I think this year's we'll see a huge, build a gain off of each other a lot, and just be able to share advice and stuff on the setups and everything. And I think that's something that especially in Pro 2, you don't really get much time to do a setup. So if you got two people on track, both giving advice to each other, figuring out what we can do to better each other. So I think it'll turn out pretty well.
Yeah, we're hoping like we can dial in the cars a lot easier, basically having double the laps. That's the idea. We'll have twice as many laps to dial the cars in. So.
Yeah, Hooman probably already had double the laps of me every round at least. So
usually.
But
yeah, you because you're just trying to conserve tires over there. Budget boy.
Which it's funny is I actually got word not long ago that me being a budget boy is hurting me, and some companies have been talking crap. Like, I guess my name got brought up about some other companies, and I guess one of the companies said not to really mess with me because I didn't have money. So they told me and it was another sponsor of mine, and they were just like, man, you need to have money for them to want to help you, which is sad, like.
But it's true, because if they put their money into you and you don't have enough money to do it,
that's exactly. And that's where it's
like, if this guy has any bad thing happen, he's not going to be able to make it. So they got to know you have some sort of like stability.
For sure. So
Yeah.
hopefully this year it'll be a lot better that way. But at the same time, like, I mean, I wanted to share all that information with other people just because,
Interesting.
like, this, I feel like this is one of the one sports that you really don't have to have like unlimited budget to be able to make it.
Right.
And so me sharing that with other drivers, like everyone else thinks it's, possible to do, but I really didn't think it was that, far fetched. I mean,
Right.
I felt like you could sacrifice even more and done it for even cheaper than I was doing it if you really wanted to.
Right. Yeah, it's interesting that companies would look at it that way. See, I see you as an inspiration. Like, hey, the average Joe can make it as much as someone with a full trailer. Full
For sure,
hauler.
and it's that much better when you do good though. I mean, but at the same time, it's not like I was throwing it in everyone's face like, oh, I'm doing it with less money. It's just like, hey, I'm just doing it with what I have, not that, hey, I'm trying to be the brokest person here and be a junkyard person. It's just like, hey, I legit just don't have this much money, but I'm here and I want to make this become a thing.
Absolutely. Yeah, so Hooman, are you still in a 370, 350 platform, or are you now into an Infinity?
No, it's a 370. So we're
it's a
building a
370.
370Z. I'm going to keep my 350Z around too, doing some minor, maintenance and upgrades on it. But I'm going to keep that as like a demo / super emergency backup FD car.
Yep.
And then just, like if there's a back-to-back, like sometimes LS Fest or whatever, I might use one for one and the other. Yeah.
Gotcha.
So
So the 370 is identical basically, besides the transmission mount. I found out one thing that I found out different from building his to mine was the transmission mount and the wheelbase and drive shaft, and I think there's two rear arms that are different, but just by bolt size.
Oh, okay.
And so it's like very, very minor. Like everything else is pretty much the same. So we already have spares, I think, of basically everything now. So,
do you so like how far along are you in the build?
well, I mean, to me, it's not very far, but right now, Hooman's car is at a buddy named Brock. He works at Dynasty. But it's at his house. It's getting the turbo fab work, which I was going to do myself, but I just don't have the time right now. I'm trying to manage both cars getting done.
Yep.
And then my car's at Rice Fab getting the rear tube redone and the front tube redone just because it's been beat up for over the past 2 years. But as far as Hooman's car, I mean, maybe a couple weeks of work once I have the car back, once I really push. I mean, I don't even have that much time in it. It's just that, I put the engine, the rest of the engine together, got it in the car, test fit the trans, and small stuff like that, interior stuff. And me and a couple of my guys, crew guys, they're helping on that.
Cool.
So it'll go together really smooth once, the virus has kind of hurt us, honestly.
Really?
So, like, a couple companies, we're not getting parts quick, like they're like, oh, we'll get them now, and then they're like, hey man, all of our employees are out, or something like that. So it seems like it's coming together now, and I think we're only waiting on a couple of parts for his car to have all the parts in hand.
Cool. Well, that's good to hear. Yeah, it's obviously, I don't know if you saw the announcement today on the new FD schedule.
Yeah.
So it looks like you guys got a couple months still. So.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
I mean, my
extra
goal is to have
buffer.
his car is in the middle of May be running on the dyno.
Okay.
So he could have the whole rest of May, June, and July basically to get in the car. Because Hooman's got maybe 500 horsepower to the tire, 550 or something. So his minimum is going to be about 700, Wow. And so it's going to be a huge jump, and a turbo car is way different than an NA platform. So he's going to have to learn it. But I feel like with me being behind the wheel of it so much, like it's basically the same setup that I can tell him, what we're going to have to do. He's going to have to be a little bit more aggressive. He doesn't clutch kick or nothing, so he's about to have to learn what that clutch does.
You got to spool that turbo.
Yeah. So I'm kind of curious. You've been a big believer in twin turbo stuff, Hurst, LS stuff. How did you convince Hooman over here to jump on to get off the NA bandwagon?
Well, I mean, we actually switched into single turbo this year just so we got less, not as much failures and not have to have so many extras.
Right.
So now we only have a one spare turbo instead of having to have two spares.
Right.
because with the twins, like I was running mirrored turbos, so one was reverse rotation, one was standard.
Okay.
But basically, I mean, it's power. I mean, you can make 800 horsepower out of an LSNA, but Mass Motorsports is like $30,000 for that. You know, you can build, you know, a nice 5.3 like fully built crank rods, pistons, everything to make over 1,000 horsepower, and you don't even have to have aftermarket crank or anything with it, and still only be at like $6-7 grand. You know,
wow,
for a whole engine.
Yeah.
So. And that's to like average people, you know, build it. Like, luckily we got Mike Lau that sponsored, you know, I've been working with for 3 or 4 years now.
Yep.
And then we got a little bit of a deal, but still, I mean, if you don't even have to put a crank in one, you could put rods, pistons, and head studs. I mean, in MDU, I wasn't even running I was running like factory, you know, stuff for a little while. And it just holds up well. I mean, if it's built right and you're taking care of it, like, I mean, I haven't had any failures, you know, engine wise, luckily. So. And not saying that it can't happen, because it can happen to anyone, but you see a lot of guys, you know, putting these superchargers on, and it takes power to make power with those. You know, we just got 5.3s. We junk one, you know, $400 for another block, and if you really, really need to get on the track quick, you know, $1,000 engine will get you by for 800 horsepower.
Right.
So, because all you got to do is put a cam and some valve train in it, and it'll hold actually for, you know, and some good head studs, but yeah. Other than that, I mean, the stock 5.3, man. I mean, we run stock head still.
Wow.
So nothing special on it. It should make 1,000 with this turbo, no problem. You know, a 750, 800 on the low setting, pretty easy. So it's just simple to me. Like, all these other people complaining about power, and like, I don't know. It just doesn't seem very hard at all, especially with turbo.
Right. Well, just to kind of throw a different perspective out there, I know some companies want you to run, like, for example, if you're like an Edelbrock or a Magnuson, or they obviously want to promote the stuff that they sell. So
absolutely,
you're not going to be running crazy custom stuff. Like with twin turbo stuff or single turbo, you're going to have to do a lot of custom piping, stuff like that.
So like, the thing is, though, a Magnuson supercharger, like a kit for someone off the street to come get one, is like $7,000 to $8,000.
Sure.
You can buy a turbo for, even the expensive turbos are like $3,000.
Yep.
And then you build your own stuff. I mean, you're maybe like $6,000 into it, and you can make more power. But also, though, you got a trade off. You know, obviously those guys are making power as soon as they touch the throttle. Yep. We got a little bit of lag, but with this setup, I think Hooman's probably going to be pretty surprised on how quick it does come up. Right. You know. So the twin setup I had was a little laggy, but you know, the single setup isn't.
Jonathan was telling me, like, even at the lowest RPM under like turbo lag, it's still like 400 or 500 horsepower.
Right.
So, you know, like, that's what I have max. So like, if you know, like, it shouldn't, I don't know, we'll see. But based on, you know, the way he explained it, I don't think it'll be that big of a like adaptation to turbo lag.
No, yeah, and I don't disagree. I was just giving out a different point to why people run certain things.
Absolutely.
Oh, yeah.
Some people it's easier.
Money aside, I think supercharger is probably the better.
More than likely.
NA is the best, you know, and then supercharger, then turbo, if you're not talking about cost per dollar,
right,
and just performance, like response time. But, you know,
it's honestly a personal preference, to be honest. Like, I mean, even if I'm a driver, like, just because if I'm getting a free, if I can't drive a different, like, if I don't like that setup, I don't want to run that setup. Right. So a lot of guys like the supercharger setup, and it's easy. I mean, you're bolting it on and you're ready to go.
Right.
So Madison's got that stuff, you know, taken care of. But the only thing is with them, say you mess up a blower, you know, like what I thought was really cool is, like, the Magnuson you can't do this with, but Matt Field, he runs the Pro Charger or a Vortec.
Vortec, yeah.
So it's belt driven and it's mounted on the, you know, it's mounted up off the head. It's on the accessories.
Right.
And they have a tune that if the blower or intercooler or something gets damaged, they literally just run it in A with nitrous, and it only makes like 50 or 100 horsepower less on their low setting. What? So they were making like 600 or 700 horsepower without the blower, like, and all they had to do is change the tune.
Really?
So that's pretty cool, I thought, because they made that on the frenemies, and so you could almost do that with a turbo car, but the problem is you'd have to have so much nitrous to even make it. Because, like, in all reality, these 5.3 engines with this cam might make 330, 340 to the wheel.
Right.
And the turbo's just doing all the work.
Yeah. It's interesting idea. Very cool, though. So, let's kind of just jump into where you guys kind of all got started. Because both of you are in, like, the central part of America, correct?
I'm in Tennessee, Nashville, and Jonathan's in Kentucky.
Right.
Western Kentucky.
Yeah. So what is drifting?
Yeah, we're 2 hours apart.
Yeah. What's drifting like in that section of the country?
Nothing where I'm at, but where he's at, there's a lot.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if he even knows, but so I started drifting in high school. I built a SR car. I did an SR swap in my auto tech class. And we drove to our first event, which was 2 hours. Me and my buddy, he's found out about it. And Hooman was actually at it. It was at a Tennessee drift at the Nashville Speedway in the parking lot. And that's kind of like where everything kind of like started for me. Like I went there, and a local guy here had kind of drifted there, and he was like, "Hey man, just go out and see if you can link a couple turns." And like I think the third or fourth lap, I could do the whole track. So.
Nice. No, I didn't know that. Yeah. That's a fun parking lot. They don't let us do it there anymore, but that's a good parking lot, a huge parking lot.
Yeah. So what's going on in Tennessee with drifting?
I mean, we have a lot of events. Like we have, East 10 Drift does a bunch. There's Tennessee Drift, which is basically the same, people in the region, and then there's Traction Optional out of like West Tennessee. And they all work really well together. Like, a lot of, I don't want to name names, but there's a lot of organizations that tend to get like annoyed with each other, and they like kind of like crouch onto each other's territories. I think.
Butt heads.
And luckily here, I don't feel that, and I don't see that at the events, in Tennessee. And I think it's because most of these guys have been doing it for a long, like it's not like somebody just showed up and did it. Like all these guys know each other. We drink and hang out with each other.
Right.
Like we go out together. Like everybody knows everybody, and it's just like it's fun. And really, most of the local events are not like somebody trying to make money. It's just somebody that wants to help grow the scene.
Right. That's cool. Yeah.
Yeah.
Very neat.
Yeah, for me, I have to travel to either there or Drift St. Louis, like St. Louis. They have the Drift St. Louis has events. So I'm like in between a couple places.
Cool. Well,
you're not too far from like north too, right? Like how far away is like Indy and stuff?
No, 4 or 5 hours.
Yeah, it's not terrible.
Not terrible.
Better than where I'm at. I mean, I got the one drift organization, and then it's like 5 hours to Ohio.
Where are you? What's
Detroit
city? Oh, okay.
So I mean,
yeah, but they don't they have something?
Well, so there's two tracks really. There's Auto City and there's another small circle
M1.
track. Well, they don't don't really let you can if you want to do like grassroots, you can't do M1. M1's like like invite special.
I got you.
Like for high level drivers like you guys. So and I think they open up like once or twice a year. So, but it's like two circle tracks, and then obviously you have Gingerman for Grid Life, and then there's one other event there. But I mean that's not like a consistent spot either that you can go drift. So, there's like two spots in Michigan really, and then you have to drive like 5 hours to like Southern Ohio to get to the next closest thing. That with MDU and stuff. So. What was kind of like your progression car wise? Like how did you guys kind of develop your cars?
Oh, people are gonna hate on me.
It's the reason I asked this question.
Let's hate on you.
Well, like I don't know, like I wasn't like huge, like all about only drifting, and most people know that I was drag racing too. So. But in high school, like I had, actually when I went to that first event, I seen Tyson Schmidt. He had an S13 coupe with an LS, and it was like he was debuting at that event, and I was like, I'm gonna have one of those.
Nice.
So like right after high school, I went through like I I had a 350Z that I single turboed, and I wasn't drifting it really.
Mm-hmm.
I was just I was gonna street race it basically and do stupid stuff, but it blew up really quick. So I ended up getting all my money back on it, and then I bought a Mazda RX-7 FD with an LS done. Yeah, it had an LS in it already.
How'd you afford that?
I was flipping cars when I was young and making money off of them, and somehow I had 17,000 cash. Went and paid for this RX-7, which was stupid probably, but it was one of the coolest cars. And then I flipped it and made money on it in like 2 months. And then I built a S13 coupe with a LS, just like Tyson's basically. Like it had fast 102 intake and stuff, heads and cam, and so I started drifting with it for fun at like KMS events. Like I don't know if people remember those, but and I mean I wasn't any good. Like I wasn't really competing really, but when I went to one of those. I had talked to, it was called Aloha Green Tea at the time. And I was like, hey, man, can I get a sponsor or whatever? I was like 18, and he's like, yeah, you drove really good. He's like, maybe we'll talk about it. And so, like, he's literally been probably my first sponsor he still helps me out to this day.
Really?
And so, but I had that S13 with an LS. So basically, my first time ever even driving, like, any real track, I had an LS already.
Oh, wow.
Just welded diff and, like, cut knuckles, though. But I was street driving it everywhere. I wasn't trailering it or anything. And then then I was just like searching online or whatever and seeing a 350Z with an LS swap kit already. And it was like super cheap. So, but I didn't have that much money at the time. I was like, I'm a lowball. Maybe I'll take. Well, sure enough, dude takes it. So I got a 350Z chassis and I just took the LS out of the S13. Sold that chassis to a guy actually in New York. I forgot his he's still Nate Snyder.
Okay.
I think he drifts.
Yeah.
He helped Riley Sexsmith.
Yep.
So he actually still had the chassis not long ago. And then had that Z, and then just randomly was like, I want to turbo it, and because I didn't even really drift I drifted with the Z actually state adrift.
Yep.
So if did you remember that series?
Yeah.
Actually,
I
me and Hooman podiumed together.
Yeah.
He was in a VQ 350, and I was in a LS1 350 because that's when I met Nick Swan for the first time. He was actually on grid back then even.
Wow.
And I got like third place, I think.
Nice.
Yeah.
So, and then from there, like that same chassis was the one that I went to, MDU with and was drag racing. And I went through like spells though. Like I wasn't die-hard drifting, I would only drift when there was like a couple events that would come up and I would go to them.
Yeah.
And then I just progressed, and then one year I was like, I'm gonna do MDU, like just go for it. And then the first event, I podiumed and then did good for the rest of the year and got my Pro 2 license there with that chassis.
Yeah. And
it went single turbo, like it had an 800 horsepower, and I was doing like grassroots events with 800 horsepower. and everyone, was probably hating, like. And it's not that I was that fast, like the car was slow. It was horrible. It was not set up right.
Yeah.
It was horrible probably, but I was doing decent, linking the tracks, like tire smoke and stuff, and it sounded good. Got a lot of, notary and stuff. Yeah. And then I twin turboed it, and that's when it was like everyone was like all about it. And I was really street racing with it and drag racing, and like I got more like publicity from drag racing it than I did anything. Yeah. So, and then I actually gained like a lot of sponsors for Formula Drift, like through drag, like people knowing I drag raced it,
Really?
Yeah. And then after that, it was time to build a new car and do a G37. So
nice.
And that's where I'm at now. And then that chassis is going to go this year, I think. So.
All right. Well, Hooman, you have a much different story, I feel like.
Yeah. So,
yeah.
Basically, what I started doing was I had a 2000 Celica GTS, and I, would watch like Initial D and be like, oh, awesome, I can go sideways. And I used to kick it and like just pull the e-brake and like play around in parking lots and just do like stupid shit like at night. Eventually, I had a MR2 as well. So I had a 93 MR2 turbo. And eventually I just started doing like autocross and like kicking it sideways, like on 90s, and they would yell at me like, don't do that, you can't turn, that's not fast. And I'm like, all right, well, it's fun, but okay. So eventually I went to school in Atlanta and in college, and I went to Turner Field, like one of those back in the day, like before I don't even know, there was like so many names that it went through, but it was at the Turner Field events, and I would show up with a donut, no spares, a bottle jack, and like a 4-way. I would bust a tire. Like I would drift until one tire, because it was like, I think it was even an open dip. I don't even think it was like a welded dip or anything.
Yep.
I would drift. I would drift, right, for half a day till the tire busted, put the donut on, drive to the tire shop, get them to swap the tire. I would convince the guy that there's something wrong with your tire, because it would always like cord or bust. And then I used to do that, and then at night I would just like play around with it. And then eventually I got like a 2000 Mustang GT, and I drove that and drifted it for the first time, and I was like, holy shit, like this is so much easier. Like I was like confused. I was like, I can't believe it. And then eventually I got like a 05 Mustang GT, like the newer body. I like that I only had it for like maybe 6 months, and then I got a Z. These are all daily driving cars, and then I got that car. And once I drove that, I was like, holy shit, like this car is set up. And I drove that car stock for the longest time, like stock. I'm not talking about suspension, nothing, like just stock suspension. And people were like, you got to put coilovers on it. I'm like, I don't want to spend any money on this. Like, I don't want to put anything. Like, I literally would just buy tires, like used tires, and show up. And then one time, I like couldn't drift NSS on the entry. Like, I couldn't link it right. And then someone was like, you have to have an e-brake and a diff to do this. Like, you just can't do this. So I bought a diff, I bought an e-brake, and I bought coilovers. And then, like, I started, like, being, decent, like just linking the course like solid. And then we went to MDU came to town, their first Nashville event, or their only one at NSS. And I was like, well, I'm gonna try it, because people say like you should try like competing. So I competed, and I got 6th place in qualifying, but out of like 20 something drivers, only 6 people qualified, because the course is really challenged. Like the entry, if you enter, it's really hard. So like 14 drivers zeroed, so I got 6th place in the whole event. And I was like, all right, fine, I'm going to cage it. Because you couldn't tandem back then. Like if you didn't have a cage, you couldn't tandem. So I never tandem until I got a cage, and then that's the first year that I did MDU after that. And that's where they did, I think it was a 6-round like event when I did it the first year. So then slowly just through parts after I drove the VQ and MDU for like 2 or 3 years, and then I put an LS in it, and then got my FD license that year. And then the rest is history, I guess.
Nice. Very cool. So what was it like drifting in MR2, or like trying to drift in MR2? It
is about balance. Like you gotta really thread the needle. Like you have to be right on point. Like if you're a little too much angle or a little not enough angle, it just doesn't work. Like it taught me a lot about like throwing the weight around and like shifting weight in the car. Because if you don't do it perfectly, like that car, it's cool because you have to learn how to throw momentum around. Like now, like that's when like I drove the GT Mustang. I was like, oh, you can just press the gas to make it do what you want. Like what? I was like baffled that it was that easy. But like with that MR2, like you couldn't pressing the gas didn't do shit. Like you had to like throw the car and just like get that perfect angle. It was actually like how I met Tony Schultz. Like I was drifting at Turner Field, and I sucked. Like I'd be like he was running the start line or something. I was like, hey, how do you not suck? Like, can you just help me stop sucking? Like I don't know. Like I would link the course like 1 out of 100 times. He's like, I'll try it, and he like drove my car, and he didn't link it the first time, but he drove it the second time and he linked it. He was like, dude, this car's really hard. Like he told me that. I was like, oh, okay. And he was like, that's when he was doing like D1 and FD and stuff. So like I knew he was a good driver. And then like I don't know, it just
interesting.
It's still a fun car to drive. Like I still have an MR2, and like I have a couple actually, but I want to turn one into like a fun drift car, like not for like competition, but just like they're fun cars to drive. It's kind of like Miatas. Like Miatas are fun to drive. They're not fast, but a stock Miata is just challenging, so it's fun.
Yeah, I just feel like the weight of the engine in that in the mid,
it's terrible.
It's so weird.
Like, the worst setup ever for like it's not a good idea, but
right.
I did it.
It's funny you mentioned that because I forgot a car that I had a VR4 in high school and would drift it. I know it sounds dumb, but it was all-wheel drive, and I would literally rip the handbrake, dump the clutch on like street on turns, and roast all 4 tires.
I'm sure that didn't
like,
break anything at all.
Yeah,
it never broke.
So unreliable.
And there's actually still a video right now on YouTube of me doing drift donuts with it, like big donuts, like controlled donuts.
What was the
VR4.
engine in it?
It's a twin turbo V6.
Well, yeah, but was it like modified at all, or was it stock?
No, just stock. I had a truck and traded a guy my truck for that car when I was in high school, and that thing was fat. Like when I was young, I was like got on the interstate and did 150 in it, just to see how fast I could go in it. I mean, I wasn't smart when I was young, but and it's funny that he brought up autocross. Like, I guess that's really somewhere that got brought up too is. The local autocrosses, they called me McBoostin, and I would just go there and drift. Like they knew it, and they allowed me to drift, and they just let me do it, because I wasn't hitting all the cones either at the time,
Mm-hmm.
And I still go to some of the local autocrosses and autocross my FD car.
Yeah, nice. Oh yeah, that's awesome though. So what's something that has really helped you progress as a driver throughout the years that you think would be helpful for other people to know? I mean, obviously the weight transferring with that MR2 would be some really fun, but I think a good experience for a lot of people in just learning balance of the car instead of just using all the gas, But
I mean, for me, like the biggest thing that I kind of disciplined myself on learning was like even when I started with MDU, all I had was a diff, a hydro, coilovers, and a cage.
Mm-hmm.
Like I didn't buy power adders. I didn't buy, basically, I mean, I had an intake. That was the whole thing. And like if I couldn't link a course, I didn't say, oh, I need more power. I would say, okay, let me enter faster or boost the tire pressure or whatever. And I didn't let myself buy. Like I'm always in the mindset of I'm not going to buy a part unless I'm maximizing what I have.
Mm-hmm.
And I think if you keep that mentality, it forces you to learn how to drive your car to its potential versus like fixing your problems with an angle kit or fixing your problems with, more power or, whatever. Because I mean, that's where you see like a lot of these low power cars like keep up in some of these other series, like where they're battling like an 800 horsepower car and they keep up. Because that driver is utilizing the max. I mean, they're relying on that other driver to make some small mistakes to keep up. So that's kind of like the thing when I was driving with the VQ. Like, if someone was a better driver than me and they didn't screw up, I couldn't beat them with my car.
Right.
But if they were, if they make a mistake, I'm there. Like that was the best way for me. Like I think I got second place one year, but it wasn't out of me out driving. Like I didn't outdrive a better driver. It was the cars in front of me like screwed up a lot and I just kept up with it. So yeah.
Nice.
I don't know. I think I'm like on the like I agree with it some, and then at the same time though, like everything is progressing so quick now, like people can come in and literally go Pro Am, FD, Pro 2 and like so quick because of like all of the like just knowledge, people helping each other out. And I think it's kind of different now than it was back then. Like we have a lot more resources now to learn how to drive and learn how to do this than like, going, like than back
That's
then.
True.
So I agree to some point, but also like Pro-Am's progressing so quick that, like if you are good and got a decent car that's got power, like you're not going to do good with the car that's got stock power,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, for sure. It's gonna take you longer my way for sure. Like that.
It just depends on where you're wanting to go. Like if you're trying to learn the sport and enjoy it and have fun, like there is that aspect, which to me competing is fun too. Like that's like where I got into it more. But either you're gonna go that route and you're gonna have fun and you're going to just, want to conserve tires and you low budget and don't want to spend a bunch of money on a high maintenance car, then for sure that's going to be the route to go. But if you're like looking to come in, like do some damage and pro-am and like get your way to where you want to go, like, and you've got a determined path, then you better go ahead and start modding it up.
Right.
But I think John is a big point there. Like, now the resources are crazy better. Like,
yeah, like
what
my number one advice would be to someone would be to take that person, just go ask someone that's friendly, that's really good, and be like, hey man, just drive my car one lap, tell me what it needs. Like help me understand what this car needs, like at its current stage, and then learn at whatever stage that car is in at that time. Because whoever gets in it can usually. I remember going to an event like last year, and this dude let me drive his car, and I did one lap and came back and was like, all right, we need to do this, this, and this. And then he drove it, and he's like, dude, this thing drives way better.
Yeah.
So
I remember when I started, I don't remember if the guy's name was it Calvin Wan or something. He had like it was a printed book that had like setup guide for drifting. It was like Drifting 101, but it was like, I don't remember what his name was. It was like literally a book, and like, that's where I got some of my information from this book. And like, yeah, it's crazy. Like, and now it's like you can like message half the drivers. Like, I mean, I think most Pro 2 drivers respond to like any message you get. I don't know like how many messages the Pro 1 guys get, so they probably don't respond every time. But like, people message me all the time.
Yeah, like, same here.
Do this.
And I try to help as many people out.
Yeah. The
only time I get annoyed is when someone's like, hey man, I want to LS swap my car. I'm like, okay, like where can I find a 5.3? Like every junkyard. Like, I mean, like it's like when they ask that question, then you're like, okay, they don't even know what they're,
You didn't even start the basic research.
Right.
Yeah. When we were around, I don't know, did you use my350z.com a lot?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. That was
and
back
Tyson,
in the day.
Tyson Schmidt's full build was on. His build was on Zilvia.
Okay.
Yeah. That's right, that one too. Yeah, there was a lot of little forums back then, but now I don't even know if they still exist.
No, Facebook probably.
Yeah.
Yeah. So is that like one of the biggest changes you've seen change when you first started to now, or what's some other big changes that you've noticed?
Number of events, like just if you want to drive, like I remember when I first started, I had to drive 3 to 4 hours to get to an event. Like Nashville was like not even an option. Like I have to go to Atlanta to go to an event. So like when I moved back home from after college back to Nashville, I was like, shit, now where do I go? Right. Now, like if you want to drive and you're like, oh, I can't find it. I mean, in my region, I don't know. There's probably some regions that like are still underserved. I don't really know. But, in Nashville or this region, there's, I mean, Atlanta has a shit ton of events.
Right.
Nashville has a shit ton of events. Knoxville has a shit ton of events. Bowling Green has events. Memphis has events. St. Louis has events. Indy has events. I mean, there's just so much stuff now. And before, you used to have to illegally like go to parking lots to practice. Like that was. I mean, I'll admit it. Like I went to a lot of parking lots.
No, absolutely.
Because there was no other. I was like, I can wait 6 months to go to an event, or I can just, try to do some shit at night. And that's what I used to do. But now it'd be stupid to do that. Like, it's just pay the, minor entry fee and like learn in a legit setting. Don't like I would do like 4 runs maybe in a parking lot and then book it. Like I'll go home and I'll be like, all right, cool. One time I popped a tire and security guards came after me and I was like changing the spare tire as I see them like coming from this thing. It was like I was in Atlanta and there was this like warehouse that I used to go to and it was like the back parking lot where like employees would park. So I'm sitting there and like one of my tires bust and I'm like, oh shit. So I had to put the spare on, and as I'm putting the spare on and like tightening the last, I see these guys with flashlights walking up towards me. I'm like, oh shit! I finally changed it and like book it out of there. They probably were just like, oh, you need some help,
Right?
I don't know. So, but yeah, that's what it used to be.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember doing a lot of parking lot stuff and street stuff.
Yeah. So, obviously, you got more resources now. There's more events to learn at, which always helps. Have you guys gotten into the Assetto stuff and like and trying that at all?
I'm about to get a sim. Like I was talking to Hooman actually about that.
Yeah, I've started into it. I haven't spent a lot of time on it. Like I got the setup recently, but I mean honestly, like some people with the coronavirus are like a lot of free time, and it's kind of the opposite for me. Like I'm like
busy.
Got a lot of yeah. It's like it's making life harder because work is. It's harder to keep everything right. So, I just haven't had a lot of time to do it yet.
Gotcha. Yeah. So when I took a trip to Colorado, and the guys at M-Spec Performance invited me to their shop, and I went there and they had 2 simulators, and they let me drive one, and that was when I was like, all right, yep, done. Like definitely getting one because they let me drive Texas, and it was insane how realistic the track, the car, everything was, and I was like, it was honestly like within 2 laps I could link the course, and it was just like me driving my car almost.
Really?
So, and the track was, I mean, it was identical. Like the spots I was getting on throttle, where I was transitioning, how quick the tire wall comes up, like everything was identical.
That's pretty cool. You guys pumped that Texas is back on the schedule?
Absolutely. I love that track.
Especially exchange for Orlando, like.
Yeah.
I don't know who would not take that.
Even though I did good at Orlando, like, and that track was easy, but still, like, I didn't like the track, you know.
Yeah. It's just boring. Like, I don't know.
It is not boring because there's a wall. I love walls, but.
Yeah, but, I mean, I don't know. I just, like, it's just not as exciting to watch is what I mean.
It's boring for Hooman because he's about 15 foot off the wall.
That's true. At least. I keep a minimum of 15 feet.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. Texas 2 years ago, he found the wall pretty good.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
It was negative 5 feet. So I think
I hit it this year or last year too, but I got away.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a sketchy place.
It is.
Yeah.
I need a redemption there. Like I really want to like kill that track.
Right.
Last year I freaking my motor. I didn't get to drive that track. I got like 2 laps in, and then we had some motor issues. So it's unfortunate. Too.
Yeah. So I've known you guys for a little bit now, and we've had some fun experiences together. One of my favorites actually is how Hurst got his Pro-Am license at Bro-Am. It's a very unique story that I don't think a lot of people know about. Is the whole reason you even made it into Pro 2 is because of a belt.
Like someone's pants belt, like not a belt off a car.
Right. Yeah, and it was the opposing team's. What was Jelani at the time?
Crew chief. I mean, or spotter.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was his. We were battling against each other.
Yeah. So
which was insane.
Go into that story and how that all happened, because you were competing for 3rd at that point in the.
No. It was actually top 8.
Well, no, but you were competing overall for the series, and you had to win the battle to get 3rd in the series.
Yeah. So me and I forgot his name. Nikov, but what was his first name? Dan.
Yeah.
Yeah. So me and him were like battling it all year. Because we were like neck and neck in points, and I think I was like 1 point ahead of him to get our Pro 2 license, and he was like going for it for sure, like he wanted it bad too. And so I didn't qualify good because I got lost in my own smoke, couldn't see the inside clip, and straight up didn't know where I was on track and just took the inside clip out. I still got a decent score, but like it was way in the pack.
Right.
And so when I went in, I was like, no matter what, I knew every driver I was driving like on their door. Did not matter if it was the first battle or not. In the first battle, I got a guy that like he zeroed behind me.
Right.
But when I chased him, I was like on his door, like ran him hard, like I wasn't letting him out.
Yeah.
And he ran off the track. And so I went to top 8, and I had Garrett Denton.
And Dan had moved on at this point too.
Yeah. Dan moved on.
Mm-hmm. So,
and I knew that if I had to beat Denton, and Denton was on it that year, like he was qualifying 1 and 2, or mostly 1. Like he got first, I think, qualifying most places. So, like I knew I had to do something against him, and he had a pretty fast car, but I had a really fast car for Pro-Am. Like as like everyone said, I mean, I had 800 wheel. You know, I was twin turbo set up at the time. If I wanted to, I could have made 1,000 with the flip of a switch.
Yeah.
Like I had the power, and so when I ran him, I had to chase him I think I chased him first because he qualified higher.
Mm-hmm.
And so when I was for some reason I feel like he chased me first. Maybe actually
I don't remember.
Not really.
It would
not
make
really
sense
sure,
that
but
you
either
led.
way-
I think you led first for some reason.
Yeah, so maybe he didn't qualify higher, so I don't know. But so whenever I led first, at the last two turns, like I'm going around the inside clip. There's two inside clips at the end on that track at Ohio at Killcare, and my door comes wide open, but it was on a part where the judges couldn't see because of how much tire smoke. Like my car was like it had so much tire smoke that there's no way you're seeing. So when the door opened, I shut it with my hand and held it. And then when I went around the next turn, the momentum like kept the door up to me. And then when I ran around the track, like I was like waving my door to let the tire smoke out, acting like it was like that. Well, for some reason the door went shut, and I could not get in. The latch broke, and we were running out of time, and Jelani like ran over there real quick, and they're like, "You're running out. Like you only got a few more minutes."
Right.
And Jelani came over there. They duct taped my door. And then Jelani's like, screw it, and took his belt off and, like, tied it to the inside of the door and tied it to my roll cage, and it worked. And luckily, when I chased Denton, like, I ran on his door really good and got the win. So that I think they told me that I didn't lock my license at that point, but I was pretty positive I did. So once I advanced then, I locked my license in because Dan had to go against Mike Fiat, which he only ran one event out of the whole year.
Yeah, right.
And
he does that. He does that where he just kind of shows up and like just.
No, they did that on purpose. They invited him to come out there because the driver count was low.
Yeah.
Like it was the fourth round. There was not very many drivers.
Now,
so
Scott comes out. He just likes to throw down. So
he's a good driver.
Well,
so
I had to go against him.
Right.
So he ran over me because my car shut off in front of him. So
I know
that was a very interesting weekend.
I got my license by 1 point, and Riley Sexsmith knocked me out in my first battle at my last round of Pro-Am, and he had already had his license, and he came down. It was like at Old Dominion, and he came down, and that was the only event he ran all year, and he knocked me out in the first battle. I'm like, what the hell? Like, damn it. But luckily, like, I was like 1 point. That was, I think Donati was in fourth place and literally was 1 point away, and he got his license the next year. So
yeah, well, Donati, and Denton got our license. So
that year.
Which actually that year was pretty crazy. And the thing is, when I went into that year, like Pro 2 wasn't even a thing on my mind. Like running Formula Drift wasn't on my mind. Like podium wasn't on my mind. It was just like things happened, and then at the end of the year I was like, well, and then I asked one like, hey, should I run Pro 2? He's like, absolutely not. Like, you definitely need another year. I'm like, yeah, I agreed. And then when it came down to it, like, I was like, you know what, it's really not that much more money like to do it, versus Pro-Am.
Right.
And then MDU said they weren't running next year, and I was like, well, like, I only live once. Like, I may not have my license again, so I might as well do it, Right. And I got top 10 my first year in Pro 2, so.
That's the thing that, like, some people don't, I guess, they say, oh, it's so expensive. And it's like, now Pro-Am is kind of, like, the only difference in cost is travel, really.
Yeah.
Like, there's some other small things like hard cards
but,
and other stuff, but, like.
Well, you drive more in Pro-Am, too.
Yeah, well, I'm not sure when you ran MDU, but when we ran MDU, we still had to go to Pennsylvania, Michigan. Like, I know that's not far from Nate right now, but for us, I mean, those were 2 10-hour trips. And FD Pro 2, like, I think only had 2 trips that were even longer than that,
Yeah, but first year. There is a difference of Pro 2 is on Thursday and Friday, so, like, you got to take off earlier. So you're missing. There's, like, other differences. You got to have, like, I did my entire Pro-Am. Like, I got my license by myself. Like, I didn't have a crew member. It wasn't like, like, I literally changed my own tires, like, did everything, and there was enough time to do that. You can't do that in Pro 2. Like, there's no way you could change your tires.
When I was in Pro-Am, I didn't even have a spotter. And when I did have a spotter, like, they were just random friends that didn't really, like, they knew about drifting and would go with me, but they weren't, like, into it.
Yeah.
So now, I guess now you guys got a full team. Are you guys like combining teams this year too to kind of help each other out, or just as...
Yeah, kind of. Like, we'll have like 5 or 6, like two. I know I've got my two guys that are solid that are going to be there for sure, and possibly a third on just my side. So and with him, Hooman's got 2 or 3 as well. So which is plenty of people for 2 cars.
Right. Very cool.
Yeah, we're trying to share resources as much as possible, and then we're just gonna have fun. Like the other, we're not gonna get where we're not having fun. Like that's the main thing is if we're not having fun, we're doing something wrong. So we're gonna keep it where everybody's having a good time as much as possible.
Nice.
For sure.
So this is always an interesting topic, and it's one that, I've had a lot of debates on with people. Is just what do you think FD should be doing with Pro 2? Because to me right now, I don't think they give you guys enough practice, and obviously the qualifying where it's literally only a quarter of the field makes it through kind of is I don't know. I personally would love to see a top 32. So do you have any ideas or things that you would think would be useful or helpful to possibly help the Pro 2 program 1 grow and it just be a little bit more of a competition than it already is?
My opinion, I'm for a top 32. I think most of the arguments are, that I think are legitimate, but I wish they could find a way to solve it. Is that it takes up more time.
Yeah.
But I think with all the investment of the drivers and the time and all that, we should find a way to do a top 32, because reality is I don't know of very many, if any, Pro 2 guys that aren't spending a lot of money of their own pocket to get there. And Orlando last year, I think there were 25 or more drivers that were within top 16 by 2 points.
Right.
And I get judges are trying to be subjective, but you can't be that subjective for 1 or 2 points. It's really hard for them to dial in 1 or 2 points of a difference. So it's to go home and not even literally, at Orlando, I think we got 4 laps, maybe it was 6, I don't remember now, but 6 laps and then qualifying, and then not get to compete because you're off by 1 or 2 points. That kind of sucks. But I get the argument too.
But what Hooman's saying is that, but the thing is, how I feel about it is, if you can't go there and link the track in one lap, maybe 2 laps, and run a decent line, then there probably shouldn't be there. Not saying that I'm that good, but when I went to Orlando, I was running the wall, first or second lap. It's either you're going there, and my thought was when I was going into Pro 2 my second year, I was look, I know I'm not going to get practice for 1, there's so many drivers. 2, I don't even have the budget for practice. So, I'm either my first lap is either going to be records or checkers, because you got to make your laps count. So I'm trying. My first time when I went out, I told them, I was look, I told my spotter and everything, I was we're running the wall first lap, and they're just don't wreck it. I'm all right. And I think the second lap I was already scraping the wall. You either go there and you're going to do good, or you're not. Some of these dudes are trying to go there and set up their whole car before the event, on those laps, and you can't do that. You just can't. You're either going to have to learn how to drive around however your car is set up, or you're going to go there with a lot of seat time and your car's already set up. So, and for me, we never changed my car. And that's not a good thing at all. But I would put a basic setup in my car and I'd go there and I'd drive it, because you don't have the time to dial in all these things like Pro 1 does. In the driver's meeting one time, I said that someone was bringing up something. I was look, guys, you guys want Pro 2 to be good, but you don't even give us enough practice time, seat time, or anything to even be better, to even work our way to Pro 1. Pro 1 guys are getting double to triple the amount of seat time as us, and they will expect us to want us to do better, but we don't even have the seat time they get.
Yeah.
And so, there's another difference that's not really, most people don't realize. Most of the time, Pro 2, the practices are back to back, or there's little time between, or so if something happens in your first practice session, you're struggling to get the car just drivable in your second practice session. So if you have any kind of hiccup, if you wreck your car, something breaks on your car or whatever, you may be going into qualifying with whatever you've already that's it. If you got 2 laps in, then you're fixing your car and then you're going to qualifying. You're not able to
I've done that twice.
Yeah, there's not dialing in you want. So mean, that's why, like, you know, if we want it to be better, there would need to be a little bit more practice. I don't even think it needs a lot more. Like, really, like, I think on average we get 4 to 6 practice laps.
What about a day? What if you qualified
yeah.
the day after instead of the day of?
For sure.
So at least you could
But
the
thing is,
so what? Yeah. So what if you qualified? On was it
Thursday?
the second day?
No, if we qualified on like Friday morning,
right,
and then comp on Friday at night, like that would work.
Yeah, that's what I was
Thursday's
thinking.
Practice,
so you do practice all day Thursday, and then you get like one run early Friday morning to like just make sure you can run the track or whatnot. But that way Thursday you are able to make some setup changes if you want to at night and stuff, and do that. I think that would work. I mean, yeah,
that would help.
Yeah.
I mean, I think the biggest problem is how many drivers do we have this year? 45, 46, something like that?
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Give or take
So it's 46 drivers, and I think practice is hour and a half each, right? Roughly.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So the problem is you have 40-something drivers trying to do laps, and because they're so focused on qualifying high, because you know that you can't get a time. No one's tandeming in practice, so it takes 42 single laps. Like, you're not doing 2 at a time very often, and it slows everything down. Versus like in the Pro 1, when you watch practice, 2 drivers are going almost every lap from the beginning. Like, they're just because they know they're going to get 6. They're allowed. I think is it 12 or 16? I don't remember. But
yeah, well, the thing is, they already know they have a spot. If they can link the track, they're in.
Yeah, well, the last 2 years, yeah. But I mean, they still want to qualify high. So like they have a little bit different versus like, I mean, when you're talking like it's one thing if you're just flat out like doing awful, like that's something else. But like if you have like really solid runs and then
Absolutely.
you're losing by like, oh, he let off a split second before you, and like, oh, he was out there in that zone a little bit longer.
The biggest problem I can tell you, and it absolutely is, no one can argue it, is Pro 2 guys are qualifying like at like early morning during the day and then through the day. So the track is like, hot, greasy and everything. Well, then we qualify and the track is completely different. It's dark. We're not used to it. Objects on the track are different. And you know what? Like, not like maybe FD like just didn't have the stuff to do it or something, but I remember a couple of events, they didn't even put markers out. Like, they didn't even put the big black magic cone, clipping cones, none of that stuff out, and it was dark. Like, dark. Like, St. Louis was horrible.
Right.
Like, no joke, I could not see when it coming to the, like, after we went around the hairpin, like, you couldn't even see. Like, it was dark as could be.
Yeah.
And, like, you're expecting us to drive in sunny conditions and then qualify in sunset conditions or dark. And so the Pro 1 drivers, they get to practice during the sunset like times, like they get to practice at night. They get a night session every time. Well, they compete in a night session, so that's huge. And then, like Hooman was saying, none of the drivers are driving tandem. So even when you do qualify, you haven't even really tandemed yet. And then you get tandem practice, and you really don't even get that much time to tandem practice. So, like, they kind of complain about the show.
Like 2 laps.
Yeah, they kind of complain about the show, like, not being very good. And it's going to be hard to when the drivers aren't getting, to drive with these drivers every time. I mean, I know a lot of people aren't practicing with Pro 2 drivers, all the time. They're either going to grassroots events and driving with someone way underpowered or not up to their caliber, So they're not getting as much seat time with other people.
Makes a lot of sense. Yeah, I think there's a couple of things that I think FD could do because the biggest thing is you want a good show. You want a good product.
Absolutely.
You want a good product to market. You don't want it. And the thing with drifting is it can be a good show, no matter if it's Pro 1 or Pro 2. It can still have that same awesome effect of drifting and stuff. And like, it's not like any other series where like the class underneath the top class is way slower or way more boring. And to me, Pro 2 is still a whole lot of fun to watch, especially when you get to the top guys and they're all driving together, stuff like that. So I think FD can really benefit to putting a little bit more priority, not necessarily more priority, but just more effort into making Pro 2 a more of a show, because it's just more awesome content that they have, for marketing their brand. It's great for when we want to promote our stuff, we get a whole lot more content, better content to promote you guys. That's one of the hardest things for me is when I shoot for a bunch of Pro 2 guys. And the hardest thing for doing full-on videos and event recaps and stuff is sometimes I only got 4 runs to work with. I got 4 runs of video, to work with it sometimes. So it's it would make things a lot easier on the marketing teams, that whoever's trying to market the drivers. It would make it a lot easier. I mean, Top 32 would be, in my opinion, a lot of fun. And the thing is, FD has always struggled with connecting to the grassroots people, and grassroots style driving, partly because FD cars are so ridiculously outbuilt compared to what normal people can usually run. So Pro 2 is kind of supposed to be that link, and I think if we're able to make Pro 2 a better show, and really just display a lower form but still a competitive form of drifting, I think that in itself is going to help a little bit mend the gap a little bit. I mean, there's still always going to be that gap, but I think that's kind of a missing link that FD could really improve upon, and I think would help bring in a bigger audience for them.
Sure. I mean, the thing that people don't realize, or at least I don't think they think about, is Pro 2 now is what Pro 1 was probably, I don't even think 5 years ago.
Yeah.
I think 5 years ago, Pro 1 is the same as Pro 2 is now.
Yeah.
The quality of drivers and quality of cars. And Pro-Am is kind of what Pro 2 was
when it first started.
So it's if the argument is the show isn't good, well then, was the show not good 5 years ago? That's kind of the weird thing that I see. It's I think the show is good. It's just there's going to be hiccups and there's going to be some runs that are not pretty, but that happens when you don't get a lot of practice time.
Correct. Yeah, and that's the thing is the big thing is always there's what can we do to improve it. I think seat time would do wonders for you guys. I think a top 32 would be super fun, in my opinion. Again, that's a whole time aspect, though, that might not be solvable. But I think the practice time is something that you could work on, or they could work on.
Well, for me though, I don't even use up all the practice time.
Well, you're a special case, and obviously.
But if you had more time, you would dial in your car.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's the thing. Most of the time, we make minor adjustments, like tire pressures and a little bit of toe. That's and clicks on suspension. That's about all that I ever adjust at the track. I don't really do much more.
Or the guy that breaks something at the beginning. And actually has a chance to fix
for
it,
sure, absolutely,
or at least get a 1 or 2 more laps in before they have to fix it. I mean, there's so many drivers that I know throughout the year had to literally qualify with no practice.
Absolutely.
And then again, it goes back to the effort.
Or if it rains,
right? That messes everything up too. But it goes back to the same thing of practicing when you actually are competing and stuff, that same time frame. I think that would help a lot, and then also just putting a little effort into the lighting and just making sure that they have the right pylons, make sure that everything is supposed to be how it's was planned out to be and stuff, and just putting that extra effort into making sure that everything is working properly, all that kind of stuff. I think would go a long way. Where do you have you heard anything about this year for Pro 2? Obviously, the schedule's totally changed and everything. But have you heard any other news regarding Pro 2? Anything new going on, or is it pretty similar to what you've had in the past?
I don't think we know yet.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
we haven't got a schedule of how the event's going to be yet.
Yeah, I mean, they have said some things, kind of
Well, like that they're trying to do or
not
anything.
Directly, but I don't think top 32 would be happening this year.
Yep.
I think we've been told that unofficially. But who knows if something changes.
Yep.
I'm kind of curious if like the virus like holds up some drivers for like maybe they lost their job
Monetary
or something.
reason.
I don't know. Yeah, we'll see.
That's true. I didn't even think about that. Like some people like may not financially be able to do it anymore.
Well, and this is the conversation I had with Swan and Greg the other day. As soon as you condense, especially a Pro 1 season, all those events into a very short amount of time like they're going to do,
that's hard.
That's hard financially for the Pro 1 guys because every other weekend you're going to a new track. Well, what are you doing when you go to another track? You aren't working, And so a lot of those guys were going event by event budget basis, and now it's condensed into a way shorter time period. So
even for us, we have like a 2 week on between St. Louis and New Jersey. Like,
right.
That's like $4,500, $5,000 in tires in 2 weeks now that you got to come up with.
Yeah.
Versus like over a month you could come up with the money.
And it's like if you, for example, take off from work, you're going back and then taking off again. So like it just depends on like what kind of work you do. Like if it throws you behind at work, now you're going to be even further behind.
Right.
But at the same time, like that's part of what we're here for.
Yeah.
Like if we're trying to go to Pro 1, like you got 8 vacations basically. Then
Mm-hmm.
Vacation.
So that's what you. For me.
That's awesome.
My work's pretty cool, so like they give me the time off and stuff.
Nice. That's awesome. You guys have any other kind of cool topics to talk about? You guys, again, have been around for a little bit, seen a bunch of cool stuff happen. You got anything else, cool stories that you want to talk about or anything like that?
I don't know.
Well, what do you?
I think
what do you got,
everybody's waiting this year to see who's going to win the foot race. I've been training in the off season.
Gosh.
I mean, I've
So
seen
we're
Hurst.
gonna have a
I'll have
rematch.
to
We're gonna have a
disappoint
rematch,
again.
and I'm winning this time. So
Oh,
I've been doing all my training.
for those who don't
So-
know, they foot race for tires, and Hurst is
Lost.
pretty successful so far.
He cheated, but I lost.
Oh yeah,
He made me chug 2 beers.
that is a lie.
I did chug 2 beers though. I don't know if he made me, but I did.
I don't remember, but that's what I'm going to
That
go with.
influenced my decision in accepting the bet. Though I shouldn't have.
He
But,
still thought he was gonna win though.
Yeah, I thought I had him. I don't know. It was. I don't know. But
That's
yeah,
awesome.
we're planning on doing a rematch there, and
Trying to keep that going, like just having fun,
Having fun.
getting some videos out.
Mm-hmm.
yeah,
Absolutely.
we're gonna try to do some stuff with fans too at the events.
All right.
Kind of see what happens.
Mm-hmm. Very cool. So, what have you noticed in the paddock and stuff with people? Like, are there a lot of fans that are pretty receptive to come up, say hi, or what is it like? Because obviously you guys don't get the prime spots because you're not Pro 1, but
Sure.
in the back, do you guys still get a bunch of people?
It depends.
It depends what event and what the layout is like.
Okay.
So some events we get thrown in a place that people don't realize we are even there.
Yeah.
So they don't make that. It's not that they're like not willing to come talk to us. They just don't know and they don't go that way.
Mm-hmm.
But the events where we're like set up kind of in the row or whatever.
Yeah.
I think people stop by and I let people sit in my car and like look at everything.
Oh, yeah.
They ask questions. I think like the only times where that becomes hard is if you're about to go out and you're working on the car and like they're trying to ask you questions and stuff and you're like struggling to replace the power steering pump or whatever and they're like, what kind of fuel do you use or whatever. So
Right.
but other
Very
than
cool.
that, like
Nice.
I enjoy like the drifting part of it is like you get to talk to like as a fan even you can go see the cars up close, talk to drivers, like all that stuff. Like that's I think unique to our motorsport that like most people don't get to do.
Right. I think it has something to
For
do
sure.
with the youth or how big the sport is. I think once it gets bigger, it's probably going to get a lot more formal. It's just how everything goes. But for now, it's a super, super fun because you can do that. You can go walk up to whatever driver you want and talk to them. The Pro 1 drivers are starting to get up there to where it's like kind of hard to sometimes talk to them.
I agree with that to an extent, but it seems like some of the Pro 1 drivers are literally like going the opposite way. Like they're being more open. Like I'm starting to see a lot more of them like replying to people on Instagram and stuff. Like I just feel like because for a little bit, like I think some of us was realizing like these other YouTube stars, like not LZ, not just him, but like everyone else that are getting these big followings, like more people are interested in them than they are like, the top Formula Drift driver right now, which is crazy. And so I feel like these other guys are like, oh crap, we need to start, providing more content and, just having the reason why those other guys are doing so good is like, cause they're interacting with the audience way more than like like some of the top guys are, So I feel like they're like, realize there's that gap there and they're starting to bridge it more. Yeah. And, I feel like they're talking and, doing more with the people.
I think part of it too is more drivers are becoming just drivers. There's a lot of I don't know what the stats are, but I think majority of Pro 2 have day jobs.
Yep.
Pro 1, I think there's a small or a larger percentage than in the past that don't have day jobs, and that allows them to view Instagram and Facebook as like a job and respond to it, versus like somebody that has a day job, like it's hard to do that and that at the same time to keep up with it, especially if you have a lot of traction.
Exactly. It's an interesting observation. Very cool. Well, I guess we can go into like more of a less final topic is, where do you guys? What's your kind of goals for the year? What would be a successful year to you guys?
Win.
Yeah, I mean, I think the minimum success like we want is to both make it into Pro 1, so that we can go into Pro 1 together next year.
Yep.
Well, what I want us to do is like kill it, like both podium, like multiple events. Like if we have our shit right, then we know like we're good at setup, we're good at driving, like we got everything dialed in, and we can leverage that, and that way we're showing up to Pro 1 like with the legit, everything set up. So that's the goal. The goal is to like 1-2 podium, 4 events if you can. Like that's what I would love to see.
Gotcha. Very cool.
Yeah, I think just trying to make progress each round, and not just not backpedaling. Really, I think like realistically is like if we can just qualify at all 4 rounds, we're good. Because honestly, there's not that many people that qualified all 4 rounds.
I think maybe 1 or 2 drivers last year
I
qualified.
know Trenton did, but
it was less than 5 last year.
I don't. Beecham did, and I don't know.
Might have been Denton,
maybe Rome, or no, Rome missed.
No, Rome. Me and Rome did not make Atlanta.
Yeah.
So
that's like half the battle.
Literally, if you could just qualify all 4 rounds, you would get a Pro 1 license.
Yeah,
and that was for last year though, So who knows what this year will bring?
Yeah,
because
the weather messed up Atlanta pretty good, and then St. Louis, you had the lights, and then so last year was interesting.
In all honesty, though, no one has came in and just purely dominated yet. Like we've seen it in Pro 1 and stuff, but no one's came in and purely just dominated
Recently
Pro 2
in Pro 2.
I think
in the first or
Hughes
second
and
year,
Reeder did a good job 2 years ago.
Yeah, actually, Reeder did. Yeah, I forgot about
Hughes
that.
and Reeder, but
yeah.
But again, the last event didn't even qualify. Neither of them did.
Yeah,
nor they got out of top 16 or something.
Reeder
didn't
make it.
Yeah, that was like a big deal.
So, but I mean, it just like I know that just shows you like anything can happen. So it doesn't matter what kind of budget you have, what kind of car you have. That's
the cool thing about drifting. It's not whoever spends the most money wins.
Exactly.
Because it's not the case whatsoever. It's not the fastest car. It's not the most expensive car. It's literally almost all of it's driving. And then a little bit, maybe luck if hopefully your car doesn't blow up or something, or like some freak accident. Something breaks, It happens to everyone. So
I think it's like 80-20. Like 80% driver, 20% set up in car, and
well, having a reliable car is a lot of it.
So. In Pro 2 especially, like a lot of Pro 2 guys are out because of reliability, not driving.
Yeah.
I had one issue this year, and that was just a drive shaft flange, so breaking it. But other than that, like, we never worked on the car really.
Yeah.
Besides, putting body panels back on in Texas.
Yeah. And that's, like you said, that's a big key is reliability, because you don't get a second chance in Pro 2. You don't.
Yeah.
As soon as something big breaks, it's like, well, now you have 30 minutes to fix it before qualifying.
Yep.
So, but
that's one thing, though. If your car's already breaking and like we said, you're only getting 4 to 6 laps.
Mm-hmm.
Like, if your car's breaking, like your engine's hurt at 4 to 6 laps, like, something's not right,
Mm-hmm.
for sure.
Yeah.
Which anything can happen, man. Like, you can start your car up at your house, put it in the trailer, and then get to the event and it not start. So
Happens. All right, guys. Well, I want to thank you for coming on. I had a great time talking to you guys.
For sure.
You guys want to do like a quick plugs for where they can find you at, stuff that you guys do, all that kind of cool stuff, real quick?
You can find me. I'm only Hooman. It's just on Instagram or Facebook.
He's the guy with the cool shirts. With the
he's not.
smiley shirts.
Don't tell him that, man.
And then Cash, go ahead.
Yeah, so Instagram is Jonathan Cash16, and then Facebook's like my Cash Racing page. So,
cool.
But I do have a YouTube channel, and it's just Jonathan Hurst, but it's not popping yet.
All right.
It should be doing a lot better though. Whenever we start getting some seat time and be able to make some funny videos, making fun of Hooman and stuff. So
there you go.
That's the way to go. You make fun of me, you get views.
Maybe.
Awesome, guys. Well, thanks for coming on again. Guys, thank you for watching the podcast. We appreciate everyone that comes and watches these. If you liked it, like and share. Again, make sure you go check these guys out. We're going to see them out at the Pro 2 this year. Are you guys running like any other events?
Grid Life.
Grid Life. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, actually,
Depending on scheduling and
yes,
stuff.
Grid Life got canceled because that's in June.
Yeah.
So
we'll figure it out. Find out.
I don't
Yeah. drag strips.
Yeah. We'll be driving stuff though, and then I don't know if LS Fest still conflicts or not.
All right. Yeah.
It does.
So,
dang.
yeah.
So.
Yeah.
Darn. Well,
But
again, we'll see you at least FD for sure, and then I'm sure if they want to see more, they got to go check you out and see all this fun stuff that you guys are going to do, including the foot races, which are always great. So, again, thank you guys for coming on. We'll see everyone next time.